show responsibilities for trade shows that we would go to, 60 to 100,000 people attending these events. That's the background, that's the experience. And I would walk the floor, and on the perimeter of the floor of that trade show, there would be all these small companies. And I started to realize and ask them questions, and they would spend $10,000, $15,000 in order to be able to be at those trade shows. And what they got out of it was basically nothing. They didn't have marketing going into that. They didn't have a good lead mechanism. They were out of pocket, and they went and hung out for a week. So it started to give me this idea that I could start to provide world-class marketing services to small to mid-sized businesses in the healthcare space. And so that's when I formed basically my marketing consultancy business, where I help businesses on a day-to-day basis with their marketing strategy. And as a part of that, we help them with their trade show marketing, maybe a networking event, or maybe a nonprofit with their events. So I'm going to share today what I learned along the way, some of the best practices. You are more than welcome to ask me questions as we go. I'm going to ask you questions. And so therefore, this is the start of it all, right? First of all, who wants to pony up next to me, nerdy guy, at a networking event? And that's what a lot of events are. Whether you're at a big trade show with 60,000 people or a local meetup, maybe the regional chambers breakfast meetings, or you're going to a nonprofit fundraiser, it really, at the end of the day, becomes a networking event. And people feel differently about networking. And believe it or not, as outgoing and as personable as I may seem, I am actually a little bit more introverted when it comes to kind of going into a big room with a bunch of people all talking that all look like they know each other. So first and foremost, here's my strategy, and it doesn't work for everybody, but maybe there's a few tips along the way that will work for you. So number one, I'm not a volume operator. I'm not there to shake as many hands and kiss as many babies and slap towels with as many people as I possibly can. I am looking to connect with quality, not quantity. And so that's always a difficult thing, because you could get down a rabbit hole in a conversation with a person. But I do find value in the fact that if I'm going to have a meaningful conversation, they'll kind of end it and move on to somebody else that they feel is more important. Booze. So that's an interesting one, because a little bit of social lubricant helps to maybe loosen you up a little bit. And I've heard that, like, after a glass of wine or one adult beverage, like, I'm really good, and that's a humble brag. But after two, I'm really bad. So I tend to go with maybe a lime and soda water to give the appearance that I'm actually having an adult drink, or a cranberry juice with soda, or maybe just a glass of wine, just to have something to obviously socialize with other people. Chat people up online. That's a New York term. We say in line. I was waiting in line at the grocery store. In New York, we say, when I lived in New York City, they'd say waiting online. So when I'm at a trade show or walking into a networking event, I like to chat people up in those environments, because typically, especially at big trade shows, in the hotels, at the coffee shops, at the cab stand, there's people that are in town for that event. And there's a lot of natural conversation that can happen with the city, with the coffee, with the bagel stand, whatever it is. Like, I'll ask people, like, hey, where's a good place to go eat? If I'm in Chicago or if I'm in Youngstown, what type of coffee do you typically order when you're at Starbucks? And it sounds like a kind of a stupid, dumb question, but like, I just get typically black coffee, but a lot of people are ordering a lot of different drinks, and that sparks up a conversation that oftentimes people are in town, and you could see it. They'll have the ribbon around their neck. I'm a fringe kind of guy, meaning, like, I like to hang back on the perimeter. I don't like to be in the center, kind of a wallflower, if you will. I'm always willing to ask questions or make comments. My undivided attention is on the individual. You will get people that are looking around the room to see who's more important than you. And for me, those people are really not people that I'm looking to connect with. I like to invest in people. I like to find out about them. I'm curious, I'm inquisitive, and I'm genuine about it. So that's, to me, like, if you're looking around and through me to see who's more important, then you should go talk to those people, because I'm probably not going to be entertaining enough for you and bring you enough value. their favorite subject, and you talk about their favorite subject at length. What's their favorite subject? You can put it in the chat if you want to take a guess. Their favorite subject is typically them. If you make a networking event and an interaction about the person that you're interacting with, they'll think you're amazing, and you'll have an amazing opportunity to follow up. I don't really move around or work the room, and I don't carry a business card, which most people are like you're in marketing, you have a sales type of background. I don't carry a business card because it forces me to work harder to connect and be memorable. The other thing that it's done for me is that I've become a selective networker. So that means that I want to take control of the situation. If we're in a conversation and you think that I'm worthy enough to ask for my business card, I make the joke and say that, and then I ask for their business card because I want to take control of my follow-up. I don't really like to talk about work. So the first question out of my mouth as an icebreaker is like, what do you do? And so, I think that's like just kind of low level. I'm not meaning to be offensive to anybody on it. It's just for me, if somebody says, what do you do? I say, well, I'm a dad of 4 kids, like to hang out, coach their sports, mountain bike. And then they say, no, like, what do you do? And so, I usually try to deflect self-depreciating humor. Those are the sorts of things that I try to do to be endearing to people. If you're struggling with icebreakers, talk about a current event. Careful of politics, but yet current events are a great way to break the ice. If you see somebody looking at their phone or their Apple Watch, you can very simply ask them and say, what version of the iPhone, or do you like that Android phone? And that opens up all types of conversation because let's face it, statistically, there's twice as many phones in the world as there are people with toothbrushes. And your phone is within your reach 24/7. So we know that people are always looking at their phone. That may mean also a tell that they're not connecting with people and they're looking for somebody to talk to. So that might be helpful in order to be able to connect with other people. The venue. Like, have you ever, hey, you come here often? It's kind of like the same thing as that, but it's like, have you ever been to this new Waypoint facility? Or, have you ever been to any other events here at the Lake Club? Which ones were they? And that also will help spark conversation. So that's how I handle my networking. Follow up, reference something that you discussed. So I'm memorable. I like to try to remember somebody said something and I put that in my email or my connection on LinkedIn to build my network. So those are my networking tips to you. And by the way, you've got some networking tips. I'd like to hear them in the chat of what you do. So launching my first polling question, a lot going on. I want to hear what you have to say, how you network, and I want to talk now about trade shows. So how many of you are planning on attending or showing at a trade show? Actually, the question is, are you displaying at a trade show this year? So here's what I know. Number one, first and foremost, it all comes down to the planning and the tactical, the why. What's the goal? Are you looking to build awareness for your business in an industry? Are you looking for lead generation? Typically, it's a very big and financial commitment to go to a trade show. Most people are counting booth, hotel stay, travel expense, food, and they don't often even count the time out of work. So you have to add up all those things. And if you don't have any year-over-year perspective, it's difficult. You've got to go make a bet, and you want to ensure that bet. If you've gone in the past, you want to go back, and you want to analyze why exactly, what did we get out of last year's show? What did we do? How did we maximize our opportunity? Did we not? So I like to think that 3 to 6 months out, you're discussing your branding, your booth, your layout, your location, and the personnel that's going to be attending. All those things are very important in determining whether or not you're going to go to the show. Do you need a new booth? Who are you going to work with? You're going to need some graphic design. You don't want to be rushing at the last minute. How are you going to ship this, to the event? A lot of small businesses, you're basically either driving or flying with this stuff, and who's going to take it? And By the way, are you going to pass out print materials? My advice to that is probably you shouldn't. At GE, with a $2 million budget at trade shows, we would actually never pass out any print materials. The next is, how many leads do you think you can pull from the event? And if you can talk to the conference organizers, they should be able to give you some idea of how many people have attended in the past. And just keep in mind that they tend to inflate numbers. I am a conference organizer, and I know for a fact that the way that we are very transparent, we tell our people that we count all of our attendees, our participation by sponsors, speakers, and attendees. So we're not just saying, hey, we had 400 attendees. We had 400 attendees with speakers, sponsors, and actual paid attendance as well. And I believe that all those people are an opportunity for you to be able to connect with. All my clients, and in the past as well, we basically set a number for the sales and marketing organization to work to before we even ever get to the show, because we don't want to leave meetings and leads to serendipitous types of opportunities. And what I mean by that is somebody magically is walking down an aisle at a trade show with hundreds of booths, and they see something on your booth that's just so much more amazing than other booths. And you're out there on the aisle, hey, come and talk to us. Why, right? So pre-arranged meetings, demos at the booth, over dinner, coffee. Have these meetings pre-arranged. We want 2, 5, 10, 15 meetings, and work to those meetings and have a weekly meeting with a cadence to discuss how many meetings are booked. Use a calendar tool, use a scheduling tool, use a form, whatever it takes, but make sure that you go into a trade show with pre-arranged meetings. This way you know going into it that you're going to be spending your time wisely. Look, it's an industry event. Maybe it's a regional event. Maybe it's a city event, but you know people are going to be there. So do pre-reach outreach. That is probably the most important thing that I can tell you. And it doesn't have to be sexy. It's like one-on-one emails and phone calls, right? PR stories. How many stories do you think you want to try and land? There might only be one journalist. There might be a blogger. There might be a podcaster, whatever it is. How many stories do you want to land at the event? Social media. Again, like, what is the social media strategy going into the event? I ran an event with GE at the 60,000 person trade show at the McCormick Place in Chicago. I also went back the following year with a new startup in healthcare, a little 20 by 20 booth, and we dominated Twitter, and we actually outpaced GE and all the big Siemens and Philips, because I knew that they're like on a pitch count when it comes to like their Twitter activity. And for the small company, we were able to be super flexible, and we just absolutely delivered like 100,000 impressions through Twitter at the trade show. I think that the worst possible trade show social media post is, hey, visit booth 245 when you're at such and such trade show. Like, give your people a reason why. Stop by the booth to register for a free gift, free advice, chuckles along the way. We're passing out free coffee. Whatever that is, I think that needs to be a part of the value that you bring, because it's just selfish to say, hey, I know you're busy at a trade show, walking around, learning about new product, and when you get a moment, stop by our booth because we're awesome. Everybody's awesome at a trade show, right? So you got to find something that you can present to them to entice them to come to your booth. Your customers. Again, great GE story. So like, we were evaluating like, we spent $2 million on a budget to go to the annual radiology trade show in Chicago the week after Thanksgiving. And, what do we actually get out of it? Like, we're counting just net new leads. And it turns out like our $2 million investment, wasn't necessarily amazing. It was starting a lot of conversations. And then with 2-year sales cycles, it really wasn't paying off until, 24 months down the road. And so what I did was analyze approximately how many customers were showing up, and we were putting our hands on them figuratively at our booth, showing them demos. And don't be naive to think, and I'm gonna actually turn off my and it doesn't look good. Let me do this real quick. So let me stop my video. So, all right. So basically at GE, what I did is I did an analysis. How many people are, actually at the booth that are customers that are looking at product? Turns out there was like $20 million worth of business that was coming through our booth the entire week, which is an incredible amount of money to spend, you know, like that investment, $20 million. And by the way, all those customers, they're going to Fuji, they're going to Philips, they're going to Siemens, they're going to Hitachi, and they're looking at the latest, greatest solutions as well. So let's not be naive that it's an awesome shopping experience that basically has your competitors there as well. So make sure that you don't underestimate the fact that your investment's also going to take care of existing customers. There's opportunities for customer dinners, customer luncheons, customer cocktails, whatever it is. Walk the floor. Typically, I would go out, no matter what I'm working for a current client or in the previous, even working for a brand, we'd go out and we would look at different booths and see what their messaging looks like. What's their branding? Make connections. That's an important factor. Most conferences will not share the email list with you, but they will share the participant list with a lot of times now within your CRM or your marketing automation software, you're able to upload that list and then kind of map it back to see what emails you actually have. You can share that list with your sales organization for one-by-one connection. And that's a really important factor as well. I love the idea of evening hours, an evening event in between, right after the event, happy hour into dinner. You can't get too hurt on a 2-hour happy hour. I like to use a schedule like Eventbrite, maybe passing out postcards at the booth that have a QR code that will lead directly to the registration that always captures the email. And then going into a trade show about 2-3 weeks out, I like to have some sort of webinar that I utilize to promote. And on that webinar, I like to talk about the event that we're going to be going to, and let's make a connection at the event. The promotional campaign, because of the webinar, should start 4 to 6 weeks out. You could dump lists into social media. You can start with your sales one by one. You can start with your sales one by one on LinkedIn, email, setting up meetings, making sure that you're going to obviously ensure your bet. And then align your sales team by holding them and yourself in marketing accountable, or as a business owner to say, we are trying to get 10 meetings prior to the conference. We are trying to get, and this is what we're trying to accomplish. If you say you lose your sales organization. And then follow up. So many people go to trade events, they get lead lists, and they're like, great, now that's just the work, you're just beginning. You have got to have some immediate follow-up in place from a marketing perspective. One email to many, engaging them, nurturing them in touch points, recapping blog article, recapping the most recent DOYO Live conference, recapping the most recent healthcare trade show, recap of the event, right? What went on? What was your take? What was your point of view? And then there's one-by-one emails from sales, referencing the conference, asking for follow-up on phone, in person. Let's get together. Let's talk about what you thought. It doesn't have to be about the company. It could be soft sell them on the fact that you're trying to get back together to see what they think about where the industry is headed, right? You're asking for their advice. So make sure that you've got a follow-up plan in place. It's never too soon to follow up post-event. I'd love to hear from you in the chat, or if you have questions about any sort of trade show marketing opportunity. I'm going to jump next into the meetup networking. So I shared with you, my tips on networking. Let me do this. Networking. Okay, I'm gonna launch another polling question, and this time there's multiple questions, and to make it even more interesting, there are multiple answers within those multiple questions. So you can take your time and go through those. There's all sorts of networking opportunities that are out there today. And one of the things that I did is I actually inherited this group, but you could join our meetup group. Um, and this is basically Meetup has a built-in audience of people that are looking to connect with other people. And Youngstown Marketing Meetup has grown to 314 members. And I'm going to get more into what this is about. It's not a shameless promotion about it, but like every industry can go to Meetup for $25 a month and create your own networking group. So analogous to whatever your industry is in interest, as long as you don't necessarily make it self-serving about you selling product or services, that just comes out with the natural nature of forming a networking group. Meetup has this built-in audience that people will automatically find this, join this on a consistent basis, and then you can manage the group from there. And I basically formed my own networking group. And the reason I formed my own networking group is a couple reasons. Number one, I don't necessarily like how some of the other networking groups work, and I'll get into that. But the other is it's an awesome opportunity if you just do the math on this. So our networking group meets on a monthly basis, and usually 10 to 20 people show up at our networking events. At the end of the year, I have made friends now with 120 to 240 new people. So networking event, 10 people show up. I see eyeballs roll all the time. It's like, well, you only get kind of 10 people to show up. Some people are like, oh, that's great. Other people are like, yeah, that's not a lot of people. And I'm like, look, I'm not a volume operator. I'm looking to make meaningful connections that people can feel important, make the right connections. And I'm not playing the short game of, hey, there's 500 people in a room. I could probably still only talk to 10 of them anyway. I'm playing the long game that at the end of the year, hopefully I've made enough meaningful connections with 120 to 240 people. And I'm cool with that. The next thing about my networking group as opposed to others, and again, this works for me, and then it's kind of working for my tribe and my audience and my friends that I want to network with, and different groups within that. So I like to rotate basically our networking groups in a lot of different ways. And I'm kind of going to jump ahead here for a second. I think I'm a little bit out of pace. What's the format? Okay. So what the format is this. The format for me in the spice of life is that I like to go breakfast, lunch, happy hour, and rotate that between roundtable discussions. Sometimes we've gotten together and we take some chances with like content creation. So today I had scheduled a meetup at a coffee shop to record a podcast. And guess what? Nobody signed up for that meetup, and I'm not discouraged by that. It's interesting that that we tried to do that. There was one other time we did a content creation meetup where we got together and we were going to create video and then go back and watch that video that night. But there was a torrential downpour in downtown Youngstown, so we didn't do that. But I like trying these different ideas because the reason that breakfast, lunch, happy hour work is because there's a breakfast audience, there's a lunch audience, and there's a happy hour audience. And sometimes I like to get my day started, and I like the roundtable discussion over coffee. And then there's other times I'm feeling like, well, you know what, a formal presentation over lunch. So what we do is we break up, and we go that format. And I'll talk a little bit more about the formal presentation. But some people within our group are like, I really just don't like happy hour, and it's not sloppy. It's usually a couple beers or two, or whatever your preference is. And we sit around and we throw out ideas about business, about entrepreneurialism, about marketing, and it's just kind of informal. So it just kind of depends on the mood. But I do listen to the network, and I think that we're serving a lot of different audiences, and that's the reason why over the course of a year we're touching a lot of different people. Different networking ideas that we've come up with along the way. I actually had a running group on Meetup for a while where I said, weekly Fridays running group. networking meetup, and while we're running, we'll talk marketing. Bowling or bocce. At our last roundtable discussion over drinks over Thanksgiving, somebody's like, why don't we go play, why don't we get together and just play bocce? And like, people will get together and like that want to basically have some fun and talk. And look, that's not for everybody. Some people like to be like, oh, this is networking. This is what networking is. And there's other people that are like, I wouldn't mind doing something relaxed. We could talk shop, learn something from some people in a kind of a laid back atmosphere. So, is it going to be a video creation? Is it going to, let's create a podcast? Like networking can take on a lot of different functional elements and items. So if you're going to form your own marketing meetup, business, accounting, whatever kind of meetup group it is, it doesn't have to be on Meetup, but I will tell you that it's significantly easier. Years ago, I created a LinkedIn group that we then basically utilized LinkedIn as a group, and we scheduled a meetup in person. Promotion, you could promote the meetup group or you could promote the event through email. And that's a big one. And we'll get into that when we get into the event-based marketing. But your email list, 80% of the people that participate in our webinars, in our marketing conference, and anything that we do are basically in our email list. Social media is a good way, obviously, to promote it. Webinar. So, I just put in the chat that we have, here's our meetup group, and what's the next meetup look like? Web blog. A lot of times I'll write a blog article on the upcoming meetup, especially if it's going to promote an individual that's speaking. I'll leverage Eventbrite, and the reason why I use Eventbrite is because of the fact that it has some built-in search quality that will basically help with the promotion. And then Meetup as well. I'm keep touting it. I don't get paid to tout it, but it's a really powerful platform that already has audiences that you could tap into. 90. I was looking at this presentation last night, and I wrote down 90. And then I was like, I'm going to have to make a joke because I can't remember why I wrote down the numbers 90. But now as I walk through this presentation, I actually remember. So when we do our formal presentation networking events, I basically really like to make it a 90-minute lunch session. And the reason is this: I like 30 minutes of networking prior to the event. I like to greet people, have some conversation, introduce them. If they're running late, it's not a big deal. And then for 30 minutes over a working lunch, eating while listening to the formal presentation. I don't think somebody needs more than 30 minutes. Usually 20 minutes is fine. And then we kind of go into Q&A for 15 to maybe 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And then the last 30 minutes we leave open for additional networking time. So it's networking, presentation, networking. And I found for me, and not just for me, but for the people that are attending, that works really well for them. Yours might be looking at something different. I'll leave you lastly with this thought. As we move into marketing ROI is dead, which you're going to think that I'm completely insane on this one. Look, I formed my own networking group as a result of a lot of different things in my life, or a result of failures or people not giving me the opportunity when I pushed for it. I went for VP, director of marketing, VP jobs at companies when I was employed. And for whatever reason, I wasn't the right fit for those positions. So instead of keep looking for validation, I started my own company and act really now at this point as my own chief marketing officer. And I think it's kind of working out, pretty well. When I submit to speak at other conferences or be focused on other webinars, and I don't get that opportunity, I form my own marketing conference. And I host my own webinars. And the first one I ever did, I tell this story 6-7 years ago. I did a LinkedIn webinar. Absolutely nobody showed up for that webinar, but I still did it anyway. Fast forward to 7 years later, when I do a webinar, I generally get 50 to 100 people to register for those events because of the content that we bring. And so the same thing with the networking group. I formed my networking group because of the fact of the matter is that the way that networking is done for me in these other areas wasn't working for me. Some of these groups feel like therapy groups. Some of them are stale. It's always, you know, a certain time, a certain place. And I get why people do that. I just like the variety. I liked interacting with different people. I do go to networking events, but my time at home, where you saw the picture of me with the little boy, and that's my youngest at 2 years old. My evening time has become more and more dedicated to my family, and I'm trying to get better at just building my business during the daylight hours and not take time away from networking. And it is a necessity. If you're not networking, you're not working. But at the same note, I need to be home to be dad. So in order to be able to suit my best need, I form my own networking group to basically, fill that void. I encourage you to make sure that you're out there networking. Find the one that works for you. And if there's one that's not working for you, know that there's an option that you can take and take some of the strategy, and it will work for you. Just don't give up. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and list them in the chat. Go ahead in the Q&A. We're going to jump into marketing ROI is dead. Put your hands down. Quick show of hands. How many of you are talking marketing in the terms of return on investment? Raise your hand. Everybody puts $1 in to make 10 in their marketing. That's how you're measuring. If you're measuring your marketing that way, raise your hand, please. Lets me know that you're still well along. You're not. Carrie, you are measuring your marketing through how many dollars you put into it, how many dollars do we get out of it. Any CEO executive that you, if you're in marketing reporting into, wants to know how much are we spending and how much did we make? Did that campaign cost us $1,000? How much money did we make out of that? I think that is basically a done way of looking at marketing. And the reason is that your marketing can be a revenue generator for your business. Let me repeat that. Marketing can be an event, or can be a way to generate revenue for your business in a lot of different ways. If you're in the business of selling widgets, you're like, well, we sell widgets. We're not, so we have to market our widgets. But if you found ways to monetize your marketing can actually make money, pay for itself, and then generate 10, 20x. Like if you form a networking group, you could actually build it up to the point where if you have enough people, you could charge people to actually sponsor your networking group. And now if that sponsorship is even going to just cover the lunch bill, think about that for a second. Your time, energy, effort is covered by a sponsor that basically has formed a network of 10, 20, 50 people to show up for a networking event. And those are all individuals that are in your industry that you're talking to that potentially can eventually become one of your customers. And that's exactly what happened with DOYO Live. And I talk to this a lot about my clients that are like real estate clients. Like, you've got beds in your apartment complex. Why not give one of those away for free to somebody that's a social media influencer if they're just willing to document their life throughout the course of the year? And you'll end up getting a 10x investment off of your marketing. So like, you don't have to put money out there for it. You're breaking even on it. Like, it's a no-brainer. So one of the things that you can do that is not for the faint of heart, and it could be at various levels, to a symposium with CEUs, to a full-on conference, to a couple-hour workshop. If you're in the area of expertise and you're not afraid to educate people that might be your competition, you have a tremendous opportunity to become the leader in your industry and make money off of your marketing by producing content that educates individuals and people. The first thing you need to do is figure out a mission and what is your purpose, what's your why. For me personally at DOYO Live, I wanted to provide ongoing professional development for people because I thought that they needed it. And that's what I was basically doing with my marketing anyway. I wanted to help stimulate the economy of Youngstown, Ohio, through the event that we put on. And I wanted to be purpose-driven and give back to area nonprofits. And we've achieved all three of those things. And in addition to that, my goal was to basically get my name out in the local community as somebody that has expertise in marketing that you may want to call for web development, SEO, social media, lead gen, event-based marketing, right? And so what happened along the way as I formed DOYO Live is that people bought tickets, we got sponsors, and we started to generate a little bit of revenue off of our marketing of the conference that ultimately led to us getting more clients. And the marketing not only paid for itself, it actually helped to make a few bucks along the way. And so what happens with, I think, and I don't mean to use the word competitors, but with a lot of our competitors, what they're doing right now is they're marketing their business to the marketplace. And they're putting out $5 of Google AdWords or $100 worth of Facebook advertising, or they're putting some time into writing a blog. And what they're getting back out of that is hopefully they're getting customers. The difference is we're doing all the same things, but in return, we get people to actually buy a ticket to come to a conference, or we get sponsors to help want to get exposure. And a lot of times those are people in our same industry. So this is what we've done in order to be able to basically fund our marketing effort and generate revenue. And this is how we do it. We do it through our sponsors. We do it through our speakers. And we do it through our attendees. And we don't charge our speakers, actually. But what we do, and we do a lot of, is that we promote the hell out of our sponsors and our speakers. And we try to create a sense of community around our attendees. In everything that we do from a marketing perspective, yes, I'm always trickling in, pictures of me and maybe sometimes my family, but more so, we're always making it about our sponsors, our speakers, and our attendees. And because of that, we're promoting them, and we're promoting people that provide marketing services to various, organizations. And we're fine with that. We know that not everybody's our client. We know that not everybody's going to want, 400 people attend a marketing conference. Not everybody's going to become a customer. And we work out of abundance, not scarcity. So that's how we approach, these things at the end of the day. Content. That's how we built the audience. So in order to be able to throw an industry event or networking event, you've got to be willing to push content. And that could mean a blog, a podcast, a vlog, a webinar, whatever the value is of the content, and you're willing to educate the marketplace, you will grow your audience. And so that's our approach on the far right-hand side. And that's basically how we monetize our platform for the conference, is that we produce content at scale on a consistent basis, pillar content, like this webinar, for instance. We will educate you for free. We will repurpose and repackage this content, and we grow our email list. And by growing our email list is where, again, our conversion comes in. Barstool Sports, for better or for worse, whether you like them or you don't, that business just basically took on an investment of $450 million. And they do in-person events. They do all sorts of fun things like that. And it's obviously, again, it may not be your taste, but looking at the business model, they're pushing content. The most listened to podcast in the world today, in the top 5, they've got 2 or 3 of them. And so because they're willing to push the content, they're able to do a lot of things with their platform by integrating sponsors, by integrative native advertising, by integrating basically a lot of different things. And they're essentially a modern day media company. And a lot of you are thinking to yourself, well, again, we're a widget company. And if you get out of the mindset and start thinking about things in the long term, like, we could be the company that educates the widget industry on widgets. Then therefore, you can start to monetize your content. Dude Perfect. The amazing thing about Dude Perfect is that they're a 10, 15-year phenomenon that's also valued in the 20s or 50s of millions of dollars. by pushing YouTube videos for the longest of time. They have millions of subscribers, age demographic 6 to like 20-year-old kids that are they do really cool sports stunts. They'll throw a basketball like off of the roof of a building, and they make the video of them doing that and actually failing and then making right. They hit golf balls with baseball bats. And so they have all types of native sponsorships that didn't happen right away. And now they go on tour, and they'll be in Cleveland, Ohio this summer, and they're charging $100 a ticket. At DOYO Live, basically how we built that audience is that for the better part of the 3 years, I would go out to grab coffee with business owners and talk to them about marketing services. And they loved my ideas, but they didn't want to sign up for my monthly retainer. So I had this bright idea of doing the marketing conference. And I literally went back to all those individuals and emailed them one-on-one. Hey, I remember when we met over coffee, you were interested in marketing. I'm putting on a conference that will help to educate you further on what great marketing is. You should buy a ticket for $150. And that basically is how I built the audience. And then we started putting out online content, and then we shifted from the online content not shifted, but we continued to just explore okay, we're going to start with a blog. And then we went to a video vlog, and then we went to an interview show, and then we went to webinars. And that's how we have continued to consistently build the audience. And I think that what people think is, oh, it's easy for Barstool Sports, or it's easy for Dude Perfect, or DOYO Live at this point, 4 years in, but nothing ever started easy. It never started with a big audience. It started small. Barstool Sports started with Dave, the owner here, Dave Porconi, passing out betting slips, betting advice pamphlets outside of a subway station in Boston. That was it. And then they started to host these, late night raucous, kind of like fraternity parties at clubs. And that's really how it started, very humbly, but he just kept going with it. Building an audience takes time, but you will eventually find your audience. You will find your tribe. There are signals that will tell you, are my Google Analytics going up? Is my social media engagement going up? Is my email list growing? And if all these things are pointing in the right direction with your content, the type of content that you deliver, and your audience is growing, you know that you're on to the right aspect. One of the most important aspects, and I'm going to launch another polling question. Launch this last polling question to see how many people think I'm crazy. Probably the most important aspect of and these are two sponsors, by the way. Complete Pest Solutions is a year-long sponsor, DOYO Live, so is iSynergy. And so like I said, we promote our sponsors, but one of the most important aspects of this is making sure that you've got a website that is functional, that speaks to your business. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, but there has to be some place on that website that basically gives other people an opportunity to engage with you within a blog and a registration page. What type of content does your audience want to consume? Again, listen to the tea leaves. What are they telling you? The good way to start with this is what are the general how-tos, reverse engineer questions in your industry, right? We take the approach at DOYO Live, and I take this approach with all my clients, is number one, we want to educate you. We want to, hopefully we're entertaining you while we're doing that. And maybe it's just pure entertainment. I don't know. We want to engage you. So bi-directional, hear you, hear us. And then we want to promote something. Frequently asked questions in your industry. What kind of questions do you get on a daily basis? Speakers, this is important. Please ask why this is important. Why is this important? So when you're trying to find speakers to cover your networking or maybe your event, you want to make sure that they're not going to be self-serving. It's non-salesy, and I kind of left that out too of the networking event. I think our networking events grow. I think our event grows is that, from time to time, we do get something that feels like and I think I have this built in. Let me look at something real quick. I'm going to jump back here. Okay. So did we do this? Native advertising. So some of the things that I warn you against is when you get to speakers or your content, the infomercial, the salesy pitch, like nobody likes that. Nobody woke up today wanted you to get sold to, like, so just be cautious of that. Also, a big part of your promotion is going to be what your speakers are talking about, right? So you want to make sure that their information is going to be relevant to your audience. Sponsors, important as well. Make sure that you're obviously going to be promoting sponsors, their content, natively integrating them into your content, and doing cool things like interviews with them that bring your audience value, but also help to promote your sponsor at the same time. Things to do in your city. And if you don't know of anything else, pizza. That's always a good one. Barstool Sports has built a thing off of pizza reviews. And for the longest time on the DOYO Live Marketing Show, the way that we would end it is we'd ask people, what's their favorite pizza shop in Youngstown, Ohio? What's your delivery of content? So I have to do this. How many people, show of hands, remember this? Oh, you're not going to hear this sound because I don't think I turned it on. Can you hear this? Yes. You've got mail. I love that. Hopefully you heard that, you've got mail. Email's got to be your number one priority beyond your website because of the fact that, again, 80% of our conversions come from our email list. It's all portable with everything that you do, and you can take it with you. Obviously, social media is a really big deal, and we leverage that to not only create an audience, but deliver our messaging. Other forms of delivery, blog, great way to engage an audience, still very relevant, especially with SEO. Webinars, podcasts. We do workshops. Last year we did them quarterly. We'll probably try and figure out a workshop sometime in June of this year that will basically, be another mechanism of delivery. In-person networking, private social media groups. Coaches have these all the time. Develop a show, create video. How do you monetize? Well, how do you monetize your marketing, your ROI? Ticket sales, traditional event sponsorship. We have year-long sponsorship at DOYO Live. Native advertising. Work your sponsors, work your people into your content, but you got to acknowledge that. You could do this with workshop. You could acquire new clients. Content creation. Some people basically now get into the content creation game, like Red Bull is a media house that other action sports companies will go to create content. The Business Journal in Youngstown, Ohio will create videos for you without even putting them on their platform. So you could become a content creation shop. And it's something that we've actually been thinking about doing for quite some time at DOYO Live. Print publication. You can start a print publication. We launched Icons of Youngstown as a result of having an audience. And then, again, like you could get paid to be a social media influencer because you have all these different outlets. Here's some case studies for you. And I'm proud to say that like all of these events have sold out or grown significantly. We work with the Rich Center for Autism. We promoted Designer Purse Bingo over the past 6 months. That event sold out at Mont Carmel. Night at the Races is coming up April 25th. That's sold out already 2 months in advance. DOYO Live has grown 50% year over year since we started 40 years ago. The Poland Rotary Club of Poland, Ohio, their Chili Open, it grew by 50% this year. It was a huge success. And we were excited to be able to work with them and that on Night at the Races. And then I'm actually currently working on the promotion PR plan to with the Rich Center. They're bringing Temple Grand into town, which is a really big deal in the autism community. She's a highly functioning autistic person that's also a veterinarian, has scribed several books, has a new bestseller coming out, and works at the Colorado State University. So she's coming to the Covelli Center. And so these are the businesses that we have worked with over the past 6 months. And because of that, this is me basically now thinking back on those past 6 months of how we've managed to survive that. So I hope that you can find the levity in all of that. Um, I would love to take any questions that you have about um, event-based marketing. Like, what are you doing? You got a specific question about trade shows, networking, DOYO Live, events that we've promoted, email, social media. Again, I really appreciate everybody stopping in on today. We did record this event, so we will come back to you with the recorded on-demand version, break this down, share our networking tips with you and all that good stuff. But is there anything that I've done today? This webinar was brought to you and sponsored by iSynergy, one of our year-long sponsors of the event. I would love to hear what kind of questions that you have. And because we do have a few more, moments left. Best way to attract invite to an event through Facebook. Always get interest with low attendance. You're not alone. So Beth, or I'm sorry, Tammy. So one of the things that you do have to realize, this is like one of those conversations when you break up with somebody, it's, it's me, it's not you. And a lot of this with Facebook is it's not you, it's them. And as the platform, as we know, has changed dramatically over the years from a business perspective to be basically a pay-to-play type of platform, it's obviously very difficult, even from an event-based perspective, to get engagement. But here are a few tips that I have for you along the way. And actually, let me do this. I'm going to try, as I'm doing this, to show my my screen and not lose you. What you can do from a Facebook perspective, is that when you create your event, don't just let it live in Facebook. If you have Eventbrite, you can connect it there, so it's going to obviously get more run. If you have a meetup group, you want these multi platforms to promote your event. But specifically, when you're on Facebook, you want to obviously create that event within the event page. I'm going to try and find, I'm trying to talk at the same time. So I'm sorry, I'm fumbling. It probably doesn't sound great, but what I'm trying to get at is this. So when you set up your event, you can make multiple people and partners part of being a part of that event. So let me do this. Let me jump back over. I'm going to share my screen, and you should be back seeing my event page. So basically, we've got an event with Temple Grandin at the Rich Center. Now, one of the things that we do is that we create the event. If there's a ticket application to it, you can integrate most ticket applications so people can actually buy their ticket without ever really leaving Facebook. As you can see right here, when I populate this, statistically, I'm going to have a much better conversion rate because I'm not leaving Facebook, and I'm basically going to be able to see that here. We've reached 15,000 people, 412 responses, not nearly the conversion that we want, but we've got 26 people going, 386 people interested. The next thing that I will tell you is that once you've got that situated, obviously sharing this is a really big deal. So you want to share it as a post on your personal page. You want to share it in the messenger, and then you want to go to invite friends. And basically, very simply, you can invite all your friends and send the invite. And as a result of that, they're all getting that invite to attend along the way. And now this is obviously going to limit that you can go back to that. But those individuals still have the viral effect. They got invited. They say that they're interested in going. Maybe some of their audience is actually going to see that as well. Another thing that you can do in the setup is make sure that you've named the location. You've got a good picture. A video is not a bad idea. Have all the right content in the description, because there is a search application, still to Facebook. And then you can name co-hosts. So any of the speakers, any of the sponsors, you can actually add those individuals as a co-host, and it will show up on their events page. And then you can begin to engage those organizations to basically take the same approach. And the same approach is this. This is kind of like just old hat, old marketing, walking around your company, walking around to the individuals and asking people to basically, your sponsors, your speakers, your attendees, your friends, to invite their friends to basically get engaged with the event. And then last but not least, there's two other elements that I would share with you. I look at putting even a nominal spend behind the promotion of this, boosting this event to people that already are liking your audience. I'm sorry, boost this event to people that are friends of your page and friends of them, is a great way to approach it. I like that approach much better. And then I like to set up a secondary ad on the back end of Facebook Ad Manager, and I direct that ad to anybody that's engaging with our Facebook page, our website, our Instagram, our Facebook events. And the reason being is then they're going to continually get shown ad content. And I really like that. And then you can create a lookalike audience that's similar to those individuals as well. Facebook will learn that audience and show people with those similar interests. Not only that, in addition to that, if it's people that like your page and their friends, you have a highly engaged audience that has, in theory, a more likelihood to potentially convert. So those are all the things that I do from a Facebook perspective in order to be able to engage my audience. So I hope that helped. Other questions that you have, we're at the top of the hour. So it's time to, you probably got to run off to your next adventure. I'm willing to stick on and answer any questions that you have for today. We do have a webinar next week on March 11th. Look for this in the email. Matt Hines is a really big deal nationally. He speaks at all the big fun conferences. He's going to talk about aligning your sales and marketing strategy. That's a free webinar on March 11th. I'd love for you to attend that. If you got any feedback for me, send it to dennis@doyolive.com. This concludes our webinar for today. Thanks so much for dropping on by. Really appreciate it. Everybody have a great weekend.